Hawaii U.S. Representative Jill Tokuda was sworn in Friday at a ceremony at her alma mater, Castle High School. Go Knights! You're joining us here in studio this morning. Congratulations, of course. I'm sure that was an exciting day for you.
Oh, just to be able to bring it back home to where it all began and to just give a big mahalo and shout out to so many who helped me be here, quite frankly, and really, say a lot about our public schools and the pride that we all have as alumni.
And as you know, now that you've officially, you were sworn in back in D.C., but I guess, as you mentioned, kind of like bringing it back home. So now that we've officially gotten that swearing-in ceremony here at home, what would you like to accomplish for this 2023 legislative session? What's at the top of your agenda?
Well, there's a lot that we have to do. And so big things that have happened since I've been sworn in D.C. and me coming home was being appointed to some very critical committees, I feel, for Hawaii. So the Agriculture Committee taking up the Farm Bill. It only happens once every 5 years. So I pushed really hard to make sure we were a part of that discussion and at the table. So very, very happy about that. The Armed Services Committee as well, which is critical to our military men and women here in Hawaii, but more importantly to our surrounding communities. And so very happy to be part of that appointment. Just recently appointed to a select subcommittee looking at the COVID pandemic. Want to make sure that we're holding people accountable, but not misdirecting the conversation in any way. So I think my presence is extremely important, especially given the work that I did here in Hawaii as well. So there's so much that we've really got to focus in on to make sure that whether it's on committees, whether it's legislation, it all comes back down to our people. Right. How are we taking care of our families and our people to make sure that they see a future for themselves here in Hawaii, at home?
Right. I know that's been a big conversation for many years. As you mentioned, families sometimes having to move away because they just can't afford to live here. So it's looking at that. What are you hoping to, accomplish in DC to try and help our families back here at home?
That's the message that I speak when I go in the communities. It's something I've pushed in DC as well, that sadly, our children and our families are becoming our greatest export. And I will tell you that stops them in their tracks. Then the next question, so now what? What do we do? And it comes down to access to the most basic things. Healthcare and mental health services. Making sure we can actually take care of the health and well-being and the lives of our family members and those we love, that's critically important. Right now, that doesn't go equally across the board in this state. It depends what island you live in, your community, and access to care, basic care. Looking at housing we can afford. I've stopped calling it affordable housing because it's not affordable. We've got to look at housing people can afford across the spectrum, from new families starting out to seniors needing a little extra help, education, job opportunities. All of these things come down to one word: access to me. And we've got to fight across the board at the federal level, state, county, private sector, and business. It's going to take all of us. But for me, that's what we've really got to focus on to make sure that our families can stop being that export and we can keep them here where they belong.
I do want to talk a little bit about the Agriculture Committee that you're on. As you mentioned, the farming bill. Is how are you looking to, I think a lot of times when people think Hawaii, they're thinking tourism. They don't realize all the farming that we do have here. So what are you trying to, get across in DC that you'd like to, contribute to that farming bill that will help us here?
Absolutely. And when you really think about so many of our roots, it comes from agriculture and the plantation days. 4 generations ago, our family came here to Hawaii, to start a new life and see a future for themselves. And so agriculture is very important to us. Maybe different from how it is in the Midwest or California, but nonetheless, it's important how we're able to feed ourselves, how businesses are able to put food on their own tables by growing these crops, looking at protein, cattle, aquaculture, livestock, all of these different things is so critically important, but it's different for Hawaii. We have to barge all of our things here in so many cases. The cost of doing the business of agriculture is different here. The kinds of crops that we grow are different here. And so how do we make sure the Farm Bill is reflective of that? Keep in mind too that agriculture is about feeding people. So the SNAP program, nutrition and feeding programs are all a part of this. And so I made sure I got on the nutrition subcommittee specifically to make sure that at the end of the day, it's about food on all of our tables. The farmers and producers who need to feed their own families, but the food we're able to put on our tables as well. And so nutrition is a big part of that. When we look again at agriculture, how are we making sure that we have access to things like renewable energy projects, housing for workers? a workforce support, right? All of these different things. So for myself, it is about listening to farmers and producers and asking them what is critical, what do we need to do? And so much of the time I've spent here so far, and will in the next couple days before I go back, has been sitting and listening and talking to a lot of farmers and producers out there who desperately need help, but still see the huge opportunity agriculture presents for our state.
And as I'm hearing you talk, of course, all of these things tied in together, so important for everything to work together.
Absolutely, we're all connected.
But thank you so much for joining us this morning, Representative Tokuda. We appreciate you being here.
Mahalo.